Thank you very much, and thank you for the opportunity to talk here at RedR. RedR is actually where I started my humanitarian career. After 6 years in the military, I did an implementing sphere course, and yes, it changed my life. I found myself in Sudan, Kashmir, and all sorts of far-flung places, and I did 7 years in the field before 2 children brought me back home. And I've been working with organisations really to implement all that I learned in disasters in organisations. And one of those areas that I work quite frequently with is PMO, project management organisations or project management offices within charities and for-profit organisations. I'd just like to get a show of hands. I'm going to try and be interactive because I'm aware some of you have been in an AGM and some of you have had a glass of wine, and I don't know which will make you sleepy. So who delivers projects here? Can we just have a show of hands? Okay. And of those people, who has a formal qualification in project management? And if you have a Prince 2 qualification or PMBOK, and if you have an Agile qualification, I'd like you to strike an Agile pose. Excellent. So Agile does have that cool cachet. I mean, it sounds like the new kid on the block. And when I was talking with Ben, my friend here who's going to speak later, we were like, Agile seems like the new kid on the block. But actually, Agile is a middle-aged man or woman. Started in 1957 was the first footprint of Agile on the conscience of project management. It was dubbed then as iterative and incremental methods, and evolutionary project management was the term that was being used. In the 70s, this became adaptive software development. In the 80s, it fell a bit silent, and in the 90s, we had rapid application development. We had things like the unified process, and terms you might have heard of, DSDM and Scrum. It wasn't until 2001 that 17 developers met in Utah, of all places, and decided to try and codify what became known as the Manifesto for Agile Software Development. But interestingly, I'm not here to talk about software development because that's not what I do. But interestingly, in 2011, they finally came up with the Agile Alliance and the Guide to Agile Practices. So I have 2 takeaways from this. One I've already sort of given you. Agile is not new. It's not disruptive, and we're late to the show. We're not early adopters, which might be a good thing. But the second thing is that the world of project management has become dominated by software development. And in the past, it might have been something like civil engineering. And if there are any architects in the room, you might be familiar with REBA, which governs those sort of workflows and that project management within that sector. If you're from manufacturing, you might refer to Kanban and the works of Japanese automotive industries to improve their project management. So is Agile for us? Well, I don't want to answer that question because that's an incredible responsibility. So I'm going to ask you to help me. This is the second interactive bit. Nobody panic. What I would like you to do is make a choice between 2 statements. And these statements are 4 sets of conflicting principles. Now, I'm aware that fire regulations we may tilt the room to one side if we move too fast. But if we can be reasonably agile, because Ellie is really hot in this 5 to 10 minutes thing. So if you would prioritize individuals and interactions over processes and tools, individuals and interactions that side, and processes and tools, when you're delivering a project in a humanitarian context. So if I could ask you to drift to whichever. Individuals and interactions, processes and tools. Okay, the next one. The next one is, would you prioritize functioning solutions in a humanitarian context or comprehensive documentation? I see some people trying to flatten themselves to the wall here. Would you prioritize stakeholder collaboration or contract negotiation? I'm concerned we're going to destroy this building. Would you prioritize responding to change or following a plan? Okay, if you found yourself drifting to this side of the room, you are an advocate for Agile. Because these were the 4 principles at the center of the Agile Manifesto, and these are the things that they said marked out Agile project management. And if I'm honest, it doesn't surprise me, because we have for a long time had the cluster system, which really resembles a sprint meeting in software development. We get together, we decide what the backlogs are, what the problems are, we air our differences, we resolve them, and we move on. Work is allocated. But why would Agile, if we formally adopted it, be so disruptive? Well, we've become an industry predicated on waterfall planning. What early Agile proponents called heavyweight project management. And change will cost us new softwares, new training packages, developing new ways of working, and I'm sure M&E teams will hate us if we move to this Agile moving target. How do you measure that? It will cost us as individuals as well. We'll need to reaccredit. Our Prince 2 qualifications will no longer be seen as the gold standard of project management. And interestingly, I feel that will have an impact actually in national offices as the drift of project management styles from Silicon Valley to downtown, goodness me, El Fasher in Darfur is going to be slightly slower potentially. But I think one of the most concerning things if you're a senior exec for a charity is actually how it's going to work with funding, as DFID and people fund us against milestones, and Agile doesn't treat milestones in the same way. They might be here today and over there tomorrow. And stakeholder engagement and great collaboration is a high ideal, but in the rapidly moving disaster setting or early recovery setting, how likely are we to get all our beneficiaries, our funding stakeholders, ourselves, round one table? I sound as though I've shot down my own disruption, but I really do think we should continue. These are just minor inconveniences. Because we are already one step on the road, we have the cluster system, which I think is the grounding for an Agile project methodology. And Agile actually has the potential to really embed communities in their own solutions in a way that previous waterfall planning, done from headquarters and fed down and back up and down again, doesn't. And its focus on working solutions delivered at the front line will allow us to adapt our theory of change to meet the reality of change and better serve our beneficiaries. Whatever we choose, I think it's important to realize that project management is supposed to work for us and not for it. And I think we've probably all been in a project setting where we felt we were working for the project management system rather than for the greater outcome. And this is my guiding principle when working with PMOs. But I wanted to leave with a final polemic. Should we be letting software and manufacturing dictate our Agile approach? Or should we be taking the principles of DSDM and Agile and articulating Agile as a humanitarian community in our own form? I will leave that bomb and you can talk to me later. Thank you very much.